I'm Nevin Steinberg. This is Daniel Brodie.
Hi, I'm Daniel.
We are very excited to be here. I came in yesterday to participate in the Tide Conference 2017, which was over at the Hyatt, and had a great day of a conference there with some amazing speakers. Was on a panel there, and I want to say I highly recommend it when it comes back next year, which I think it will. Daniel came to join me today, and we're here to talk a little bit about immersive technology and how it relates to our market. I'm a Broadway sound designer. Recently did a smash hit show called Hamilton. Got the Hamil fans here. Thank you. That's so easy. It's low-hanging fruit for me. I'll just keep saying it sort of periodically through the presentation. If people get bored, I'll just say Hamilton, and I'll be, woo! Also recently did a show called Dear Evan Hansen, which on Sunday night won the Tony Award for Best Musical. So very proud of that, and you'll be seeing that pretty soon. Also, some Hansen fans. Nice. Not the boy band.
The Hansies.
That's right. I'm going to sit now, I think. Daniel Brodie, who is a projection designer and a pal.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I recently designed the projections for the musical Disney's Aladdin. I've done a few other touring productions. Sure. Not quite like Hamilton, but sure. Motown, the musical, Joseph, the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, this kind of stuff. I've also designed concert backgrounds for Kanye West, Mariah Carey, some other people that we haven't heard of. And that's mostly what I do. Kind of flashy backgrounds, and then very soft and sweet sparkles and stars, rain, these kind of projection effects in theater and musicals.
So one of the things I want to talk about today with Daniel is, our market, which is based very much in live, right? It only exists because there are live performers and relatively small venues, from about 1,000 seats up to, on the road, somewhere around 3,000 to 4,000 seats, which are small, I think, by many of the standards here at InfoComm. I'm a podcast listener, and I realized on my 30-minute commute, as I listen to podcasts, I try and read the news, and I can't do both. And I don't know, does anybody else have this problem? It's a and I don't know if that's just because I'm hardwired for audio, so whatever's coming in here gets prominence and nothing else functions. But either way, what I realize is I have a limited resources as an audience member. And this is something I try and manage very hard in my Broadway work, is how do we help an audience focus? How do we help an audience concentrate on what's going on? So here we are at InfoComm, and here we are learning about all of these immersive entertainment technologies. And I, being a theater maker, don't want to take a defensive stance against these. I don't want to be scared, right? And I don't want to be in a crouch and protective of my audience's environment, but it is my job to help keep the audience focused throughout a live presentation. And Daniel working in projection and I working in audio, we thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about it. So, there's a wide range of things: immersive experiences, interactive experiences, augmented reality, of course, virtual reality, even gaming and social media, and hybrid experiences that we probably don't even know about. Audience expectations are going to bring these into our venues, into our events. And slowly but surely, creators are going to start bringing these things into our live events. And I wanted to talk to you about what that means and how we can take an offensive stance, essentially. What are the best things we can take from these things and keep it vital and interesting as we do new work on commercial theater?
I mean, like you're saying, I think it's important that we have to embrace the technology as it comes. Like, we have to welcome changes. I can certainly speak for projection that the only thing that really makes projection possible in a major way, certainly for Broadway and sort of theater and live performance in general, is that is new technology, is digital projection. While specifically theater has been using projection kind of since film has started, it's always been in smaller and very expensive ways. We used film projectors, slide projectors up through the 80s, and really only the most extravagant productions and budgets could afford it. And so the advent of digital projection and computer playback and quick, easy methods of creating content has certainly changed the entire landscape of how that works. And without embracing the changes of that, we wouldn't be where we are.
So the changes you're talking about now, and what I'm interested in, I think you're interested in too, is the idea of projection as an immersive, an immersive concept, an immersive tool. And when you and I were talking about this earlier, you brought up projection mapping, of course, which is something I know you really enjoy, and I really dig as a theater creator. There seems to be, in my mind, a difference. There's like a middle ground that we occupy now in Broadway theater and live events, where we have like something between 2D and 3D, right? We have like this presentational thing. It's like 2.5D.
That's right.
Right.
2.5D.
And the question is, with people talking about 3D and virtual reality, right? And the idea of immersing an audience in technology while they're sort of involved in a live event. The question is, how do we do that carefully and for good and not evil, right?
Right. Well, I think the primary worry is giving up the nature of live. The liveness of an event is part of what makes going to any event, theater or sporting events or anything where you see it with thousands of other people, the nature of being with other people while consuming this media while it's happening is fundamental to what makes it important and special.
It's the R, right? We're doing R, right. And everybody's talking about VR, but we want to make sure we stay with R.
And
right?
the R is very important as well. And it's about finding the threshold at which the immersive and interactive and technology of it all doesn't alienate the audience from the nature of it being live.
And how do you think we do that? Do we just like try it, throw stuff at the wall, and see how audiences react? Do we do it? Do we wade in? Are there already? When I think about immersive events for theater right now, there are things we talk about in commercial theater and performance that feel immersive, and so people have identified them as immersive events. There's Great Comet on Broadway is an immersive theatrical experience. Punch Drunk does Sleep No More, and I saw their production in London called The Drowned Man.
Yeah,
these are they call them immersive theatrical experiences. There was one more that I wanted to mention that has slipped my mind. Oh, Here Lies Love, which is currently in Seattle. But what's interesting is when I started knocking these off and going, oh, there's tons of immersive theatrical events, what they really all share is that the performers are in the audience, right? What they've done is they've taken the R, the live, and brought those people out into the venue. And that, having performers around you, all of a sudden gives you a wider palette, right? It's taken 2.5D, right, which is this presentational proscenium-based theatrical event, and made it more 3D in that, somebody here could be singing or dancing or, telling you their story, and that can be happening at any point or at all points during the production. But that doesn't really answer the question about the technological advances in entertainment technology. I mean, it certainly poses problems, like how do you track audio through that? Like how do you amplify somebody when they're going to be anywhere in the venue? How do you keep a spotlight on them when they can be anywhere in the venue, right? It is still about focus, which it continually brings me back to my sort of existential crisis, which is like, how do we be immersive and still stay focused on the R? How do we stay on that live event and keep audiences focused on the storytelling?
Well, I think that you're right that you do have to try things. Specifically with video design and projection design, it falls to our department a lot to handle the new technology, and a lot of things, even like show control, often originate or sort of terminate in the video department because we're sort of the newest users of technology into the fold. And I think that that you have to embrace it, but you also have to use some care in what you bring into the live event, because some things I think are alienating, and you have to be able to decide what that is.
Talk about mapping onto, when we talked about this earlier, you mentioned mapping onto organic objects, which mean humans, I think. Daniel, being a nerd like me, it's an organic object. I think he means a human. I know I've seen some of your work on moving scenery, which has been amazing, and the kind of the idea that you can have a dynamic projection that has a relationship to what's happening on stage.
So one of the common tricks right now that we've sort of pioneered in the past 10 or so years has been tracking moving scenery with projectors, where we can take the data from the computers that move the scenery and stream that into the video computers and update the content live. So as a piece of scenery travels across the stage, we can map directly to it, so a projected image appears to stick right straight to the wall. Or we can take a piece of like an LED screen and move it across the stage and have the content know the position of the screen and counter in direction. So the LED screen appears to be floating through a stationary palette of content. Now, of course, this is all like, math that's happening in real time. But the next version of that trick is we're trying to figure out ways to map video dynamically to organic objects like people, dancers, actors, hair, a tree, something that would move. The problem of mapping to any 3D shape is a solved problem, basically, because it's a piece of geometry. We can draw it in the computer. We can draw the 3D model in the computer. We can represent that in the projection software. We can effectively map any piece of geometry. Even a complicated shape like a bunch of strings tied up, or an organic sculpture, something that doesn't move, that can be solved with a laser scan. You can scan an object, import that data into the 3D space, use that as your basis of mapping, and then project it back. But it becomes a very complicated and interesting problem when you want to track projections to let's say you had a tree on stage and the leaves are blowing. Even with no wind, they would still move a little bit. Now, let's say you wanted to generate some wind and the leaves would sort of bounce. It becomes a very tricky technical problem, but that's where these sort of advanced techniques, Xbox Connect, VR technology, machine learning, and camera sensing can help us, because we can make a really beautiful effect on an organic object using something like infrared, blasting it with infrared, detecting it, figuring out where it is in each second, and doing that processing in real time. We can actually make the content know where the object is going to be.
Right.
When it's time to see that frame. And
potentially that speaks to what we're talking about, which is keeping the technological focus on the organic object, in this case, and the people, and being live. And
that's right.
And I think that you and I have both experienced this, where the most successful moments of storytelling in our shared experiences on Broadway and off Broadway happen when we are synchronous with live events, right? When the technology is actually not just sort of driving the event and people are sort of moving along with it, but when you can actually find moments where something happens on stage that drives the technology. That drives the technology.
Right. It's quite the opposite, in fact. I think the goal is for the storytelling to take the front row and the technology to support that, of course.
Right, and it's especially cool when you think it's impossible, right? Like the real tricks are how we. My colleague Jason Crystal is here, who's working with me on a bunch of shows, and on the basketball show we did, Magic Bird, where the guy bounced the ball on stage, and that actually. There were sensors in the deck, there were microphones around, and that effect, which was impossible to time, right? This is a guy the ball is being dribbled from 2.5 feet up, and it hits the deck, and that triggered everything. Triggered sound, a sound effect, lighting, projections.
We had a cue in the show where on the dribble, the LEDs would flash.
Yeah.
So as he would bounce, I think we ended up not using it in the final
product.
No,
absolutely not.
Yeah, but it was amazing.
But it was kind of amazing, right? But the idea is that the approach was really, I think, is kind of was reassuring to me, right? And it's in that it was something happening that could only happen live, right? That was then allowing for a much broader effect, but still kept everybody attached to that thing that was happening right in front of them, which was, I mean, you can hear a ball hit the floor in a Broadway theater. This is not, you're close enough where the lag is it would be really problematic because the acoustic event is happening in front of you, the visual event is happening in front of you. Like, you're very connected to these events. So anything we do technologically that isn't exactly synchronous with what's happening in front of you can be very problematic. We had this problem with Hamilton all the time. We were trying very hard with show control to keep things locked right in, because as soon as you break that, and it seems like the technology is driving along either in parallel with the live performance, but not exactly in sync, you lose it, essentially. You lose the power of it. And the continually sort of reminding people that it is a live event is, I guess, our stock in trade. It certainly is for me.
That's right. I'm also I'm interested to kind of transition on. I'm also interested in the for both of us, really, the possible avenues that our respective disciplines have in some of these alternative storytelling methods, like VR, because as a filmmaker and content creator, I certainly see avenues of storytelling that are available, because as an audio creator and as somebody who is conditioning what people are hearing as the storytelling experience goes on, I think that there's a lot of interesting room there beyond the exact narrow definition of theater.
I completely agree. In fact, I was very lucky to go to the Tribeca Film Festival.
Oh, this is a great event.
VR Arcade, where they had dozens of virtual reality installations kind of going simultaneously. And I'm gonna call out one of them because it was the one I don't think I'll ever forget it, and I think it maybe puts a nice pin in what we're talking about. And I need to read this because I want to make sure I credit. It was called Draw Me Close. It was by a Canadian playwright-director named Jordan Tannehill and the National Theatre and National Film Board of Canada. They created this VR event, and I'm going to try and describe it very quickly. It's a memoir about this guy's relationship with his mother in the wake of her terminal cancer diagnosis. And you enter essentially a room, a movable space, which I know we heard a little bit about Tide yesterday. And it is a combination of a VR experience with human interaction. So you're essentially being touched by a human actor while you're in this VR experience, and your experience of that human actor is also in virtual reality, very simply drawn in black and white sketches. And you participate in activities, and you lie down on a couch, and you're sort of put to bed by a human who is represented in front of you in virtual reality. And what was fascinating about this was exactly what you're asking about and talking about, which is the idea of theatrical devices, theatrical approaches to new technology, right? And they went right to playwrights for this. They went right to filmmakers, and they went right to storytellers to make this VR experience very special and unforgettable. I don't know if it scales, and of course this is a problem we're going to be talking about, I think, for a long time now in the future. But at that moment, it was incredibly impactful emotionally to me. I was very moved by it, and then of course, I continued to be fascinated by it.
And everyone there, people that you saw it with also shared a experience of seeing it.
Yeah.
I think that first of all, this 20 minutes went incredibly quickly.
Yeah.
But I think that the key takeaway is that all of this technology and everything that we're seeing here today is about storytelling ultimately.
Yes.
Be it what we do, which is literal storytelling, or even advertisement or any of that stuff. It ultimately is about content and delivering that to people to have a reaction, be it an emotional, cathartic reaction like in theater, or buying more VCRs or what have you.
What's a VCR?
Exactly.
On that note, I think we're literally out of time. Thank you for coming. We'll stick around for a little bit if you have any questions, and thanks to InfoComm. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.